Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Darina Marcos Ashwili, and I'm a communications specialist here at the coordination unit of the Global Agriculture and Food Security Program, GAFSP. We're here today at this information session on the 7th call for proposals, producer organization-led to share more information on the call guidelines, and this also provides an opportunity for you to ask any clarifying questions directly to the coordination unit representatives. If I could kindly ask everyone to mute their mics if they're not speaking during this session, and during the presentations, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them up in the chat, and my colleagues and I will be going over them and answering hopefully all of your questions during the Q&A session. So please type them up in the chat, and we'll take them up from there. So for the session today, we have an exciting agenda. We will hear first from GAFSP Program Manager, Mr. Adama, of his welcoming remarks, and our operations colleague at GAFSP, Cecilia, will give a presentation on the call, its guidelines, procedures, etc. After that, we will have about 50 minutes to an hour of question and answers session. So we won't be taking questions on the floor through video, but we will be picking them up from the chat. So please go ahead and put them in the chat. But again, thank you so much for being here for this information session. We already have 120 people, and people are still coming into the room, virtual room, but delighted to have you. And I see Adama here. Over to you, Adama.
Oh, thank you very much, Darina, and thank you also, Sheshi. Thank you to the entire team for putting this session together. Good morning, everybody, to this important event. My name is Elijah Adama Toure, and I'm the program manager for the GAFSP. And I'm very honored to be here today to extend my warm welcome to all of you. I would like to extend a special welcome to the representative of the producer organization, project team leaders, representative of supervising entities, and CSOs in the audience. Your presence here today highlights the significance of this initiative and the impact it can have on improving the livelihood and resilience of smallholder farmers' communities. As you all know, for over a decade, GAFSP has been committed to improving food and nutrition security worldwide. The dramatic increase in the number of people facing acute food insecurity recorded in recent years show that GAFSP mandate is as relevant as it was 10 years ago. In this dramatic context, GAFSP recognized the critical roles that producer organizations play in supporting smallholder producer livelihood by linking them to input capitals and product markets. Building on these assumptions, in January 2023, the GAFSP launched a new call for proposals dedicated to producer organizations to continue supporting POs' access to funding with the objective of enhancing their capacity and readiness to support their smallholder farmers members in improving their income and food security, as well as their readiness to respond to the current and future crisis. We are here today to share information, of course, about the call process and requirement, and to provide potential producer organization applicants, as well as the supervising entity team supporting eligible applicants, with the opportunity to ask questions directly to the GAFSP coordination unit. We will start with a PowerPoint presentation providing an overview of the producer call, including all the necessary information about the call process and requirement. This presentation will be followed by a question and answer session, during which we encourage you to type in any question you may have in the chat box. And I would like also to take the opportunity to thank those who have already sent in comments ahead of this session. Our team will be ready to answer all of your queries to the best of our abilities. We look forward to productive discussions and answering any question you may have. Thank you, and let's get started. Sheshi, over to you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Let me share my presentation. This one. Okay, I hope you can see it. Nod if you can see it. Great.
Yes.
Okay, so again, welcome everybody. My name is Cecilia Magarotto, and I'm part of the GAFSP coordination unit, which serves as the secretariat of the program, and in particular, I'm part of the portfolio team, and specifically, I'm the focal point for the producer organization financing track. This presentation will last more or less 20 to 30 minutes, and it will be an overview of the call for proposal. So let me start with a brief introduction of the program. For those who are not familiar with us, the GAFSP is the Global Agriculture and Food Security Program, and it's a multilateral financing instrument which was launched in 2010 in response of the food price crisis back then. And the objective was to create a tool to combat food insecurity and poverty in the poorest country of the world. And we do so by pooling donor resources and allocating these resources to friends.
May I ask those who are connected just.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. For those not speaking, could you please mute your mics? Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I was saying we channel our resources through grants to project and private sectors, and the project are either for, as I said, for the private sector or for the country and government. So in this case, we're talking about larger grants, but we also provide smaller grants to producer organization, and this is the financing track we are discussing today.
I'm sorry, but we need to ask folks who are connected just to mute so that we can have a seamless discussion. Darina, may you control that? Can you mute everybody from your hand?
Yes, I will.
Yes, please do. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Thank you.
Shashi, please.
No problem. Thank you. The project that we finance are implemented in partnership with what we call the supervising entity, which are 8 leading development institutions and includes the development banks, UN agencies, the World Bank, and the IFC. You can see their logos on the left side of this slide. So it's important also to know that the GAFSP is governed by a steering committee, which is our decision-making body, and it's composed by the GAFSP donors, regional representatives, and our recipient countries, as well as the civil society and supervising entity representative. And all these actors work by consensus, and by consensus defines the direction and priority of the GAFSP. So in virtue...
Sorry, dear Cecilia. Dear Cecilia, sorry.
Yeah?
Donc, je voudrais exprimer en français. I want to speak in English and French.
May I ask you to hold on your question for the end of the presentation?
Presentation, of course.
No, it was asking for translation in French.
I'm sorry, yes. Apologies. Yes, the interpretation is available in French and in Spanish. You can see it on the bottom of the Zoom window.
I can go?
It should be at the bottom of the window. You should see a little word.
You can explain to him in French, Seshi. Go ahead.
Voilà. Oui, il y a la traduction en français.
Français, je peux y aller?
Pardon?
Je peux y aller en français?
Oui, 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 bien sûr.
OK. Donc, je suis Jules Firemba Kamungu.
Mais
Je suis de
Oui,
s'il
mais
vous plaît.
vous attendez les questions après la présentation, s'il vous plaît. Donc,
Oui,
à la fin de la présentation, il y aura les questions et les réponses que Darina va organiser. D'accord? Donc, si vous donnez-lui la chance de vous présenter l'ensemble, et après, il y aura les sessions, les questions et les réponses. D'accord? Est-ce qu'on peut faire comme ça? D'accord. C'est à toi.
Merci. Yeah, again, we will accept question, but please let me go over the presentation and then, yeah, and then we go for the question. So I was saying the steering committee, it's our governing body and it has the decision-making power. And in virtue of this decision-making power, last summer, the steering committee agreed to launch a seventh call for proposal to provide financing and co-financing to support existing effort on the ground aimed at addressing the global food security and nutrition crisis. This call for proposal has been divided in two parts. A first part dedicated to countries, and it was launched in September 2022, and allocation will be done next month. And a second leg of this call, which is what we're discussing today, the producer organization call, supporting producer organization initiative. And it was launched on 19th of January. So the peculiarity of this call for proposal compared to previous ones is that the steering committee especially requested to focus on supporting existing effort on the ground. And this was done because the idea was to really support the work that GAFSP partners were already carrying out. And the rationale behind this was to reduce fragmentation and also accelerate implementation and the impact of investment. And for this reason, this specific call for proposal have the objective of building on existing effort by funding ongoing initiatives already carried out by the producer organization, and finance capacity building activities to increase the PO capacity to support their member in time of crisis, the current and future crisis. And of course, the objective of this call must be in line with the overall objective of the PO financing track and the principle of the financing track, which you see on the right side of this slide. I will move a bit quick, but we can always come back if you have questions on any specific slide. So moving from the objective and scope of the call for proposal, grants for this call will be provided to proposals that include a scale-up of existing or recently closed activities by the producer organization, and proposals that include activities that are aimed at strengthening the PO governance, administrative capacity, fiduciary, technical, and operational capacity. Again, to make them ready to support their members in time of crisis, and not only. Since this call for proposal aims at maximizing the impact of investment, funding will be specifically granted to producer organizations that can show a minimum capacity. And by minimum capacity, we intend the capacity to implement and manage a project. This is because in the past, we also had less experienced PO, but since we want to act quickly due to the situation we are in, we will only focus on PO with a minimum experience. To be eligible for this call for proposal, applying organization must present a structure which is in line with the definition of producer organization, which we offer in our guidelines. Of course, we do recognize that the type of organization we would like to target are extremely heterogeneous in reality and across the various regions of the world. But having considered lesson learned and having consulted with our partners, we came up with a definition that it's trying to be as flexible as possible, but at the same time that makes sure that our funds are targeted to those producer organizations that are more in need. So in short, the organization eligible to receive our funding must have the characteristic you see in this slide. So they must be registered national or legal or local organization that can take the form of producer organization, farmers organization, cooperative, union, federation. The members of this organization must be farmers, pastoralists, fisher folks, forest dwellers, landless, and indigenous people. The member of the organization must be involved in the decision-making body of the organization itself. This means that they must be consulted in the decision-making process. And the organization cannot be a profit-oriented organization. Any profit need to be reinvested in the organization or shared among members. Apex organization, umbrella organization, consortium are eligible as long as they comply with this criteria, and in particular, as long as they can show that they have a track record of experiences. Under this definition, in principle, NGOs and private sector companies are not eligible. However, we do recognize that in some part of the world, the cooperative, the union that we want to target need to be registered as NGO and private company, and we will try to assess case by case this situation. So as mentioned in the introduction, the GAFSP is a tool dedicated to the world's poorest countries, and we use the list of countries by the International Development Association, which as of today includes 58 countries, which you can see in this table. As a consequence, producer organization can apply only if they are part of, they are based and operating in one of these countries. So here you can see the eligible activities for this call. This call will finance medium to long-term interventions that first scale up existing activity or recently closed activities by the producer organization, and these activities must be aimed at the improvement of the PO and its member resilience through, for example, improving land and water management, diversifying food production, improving post-harvest losses. You can see more example in the call guidelines. And second, another element that needs to be in the proposal is activities aimed at the strengthening of the producer organization internal capacity and the PO governance, administrative and technical capacity, as well as their operational capacity. So in addition to these main group of activity, we also, as for each of GAFSP finance project, we would like to see the project revolving around one of our cross-cutting themes. And our cross-cutting themes are climate adaptation, food and nutrition security, and women and girls empowerment. But regardless from this central topic of your project, we in any case need to see some attention to climate, and this is because we are now integrating a new approach to climate that the steering committee approved in April 2022, and this includes that there is an active effort in each project to incorporating a broader range of climate approaches and include at least a climate indicator. And finally, as per any project we finance, we hope to see active efforts to bridge gender gaps, in particular in terms of job access, ownership and control of assets, and voice and agency representation of women in institutions. Okay, so in this slide, you can see a few additional and important considerations to be taken into account before you present your proposal. And the first is that the PO is responsible for the proposal preparation, but the applicant producer organization will, in any case, need to work with another supervising entity. So in no case, a PO can present a proposal without a supervising entity partner. The supervising entity selected by the producer organization has the duty to support and review the preparation of the proposal and co-sign part 1 and 2. And also the supervising entity has the role of submitting the proposal to the coordination unit. Each supervising entity can partner with only one producer organization per country. Therefore, let's say that IFAD has already accepted to work with a producer organization in Senegal, then IFAD will not be able to partner with another producer organization in Senegal. There is only one exception we make, and this is when the supervising entity is presenting a proposal in a country where the SC is already implementing a GAFSP project that it's requesting additional funding. But this, for new project, the rule is remains. And in conclusion, the PO and the SC are expected to engage with relevant stakeholders working in the area where the PO operates in a gender inclusive manner. Okay, so we move now to the application process. As you can see from the timeline, the application process is divided in 2 parts. So the first deadline is fixed for February 24, which is when the applicants are required to submit the expression of interest based on the template that we provide on the website. On the looking at the information we received through the expression of interest, this you assess the eligibility of the producer organization. Those expression of interest and PO that are deemed eligible can move on with the preparation of the proposal and will then submit a final proposal on May 9. Again, note that only the PO that have overcome the first step can submit a full proposal in May. The received proposal will then be sent to a technical advisory committee for assessment, who will then recommend which project to finance, and we expect to arrive to a location by the end of July, but this may change. So the information I described so far are all available in our website. So if you go to our website and you look at you enter in the main page, there is a banner in the top right-hand corner that directs you to the information about the call. In this call dedicated page, you will find 3 main documents, which are the core documents where all information you may want to have are written. So you have the guidelines, which really is the document where I take in all the information I'm describing. Then there is the expression of interest template and the final proposal template. I really advise you to download this document because I think they are very self-explanatory, and many of your questions might be easily answered just looking at them. So in this slide, you can see the document which are due to successfully submit the first part of the application by February 24. And so you must submit the template, which collects information to assess the PO eligibility and readiness. And these include a brief project description and details of the activity that the project aims to scale up. Together with these documents, the applicants are also expected to submit a joint letter from the SC and the producer organization. This is a new step that we introduced this year, and this is mainly meant to make sure that producer organization and supervising entity are in touch early on in the process, and that our supervising entity representatives are acquainted of any request that the country offices are receiving. So finally, together with the template and the SC and PO joint letter, the applicants are expected to submit a bylaw of the PO. And by bylaw, we mean any regulation, rule, any official document that governs the producer organization and can testify that the PO is a registered organization. All these supporting documents must be translated either in English or in French, and in particular for the bylaw, if it's written in a local language, as we expected to, we would like to receive a translation and the official along with the original, let's say. As I mentioned, the coordination unit will receive all these documents and we review that all part of the template are filled and the supporting document needed are present. At this stage, the coordination unit will not make an assessment on the quality of the information received, but we use only the bylaw and other information around the producer organization to understand if the PO is eligible. If an applicant falls clearly outside the definition of producer organization, according to the definition we have mentioned, the CU will notify the PO or the applicant about ineligibility. But given the wide variety of organization that will apply and the various nuances that we expect, we will really try to be as flexible as possible with the application of the definition, but do expect that in some cases, even if the CU will consider an organization eligible, when this proposal goes to the technical advisory committee at the end of the application process, the technical advisory committee with more information at hand can also overturn this judgment. But hopefully these cases will be the minority, and anyway, we will try to limit the situation. In any case, we expect to notify applicant of their eligibility or ineligibility within 10 working days. So if your organization will be defined as eligible in part 1, the application is complete, applicant can continue working on the second part of the application. Here you can see the various documents that must be submitted before the 9th of May. So as per part 1, you will be requested to submit a GAFSP final proposal template, which is available in the website. And these templates gather additional information and more specific information about the project design, thematic areas covered, arrangement between the producer organization and supervising entity. And in this phase, we also expect to receive proof of records of the existing activity that the producer organization aimed at scaling up. And if the project foresee a co-financing partner, we also want to receive a letter of agreement by a co-financing partner. And finally, together with the template and supporting documents, the applicant must also submit a statement of readiness by the supervising entity. So you will see that we are requesting 2 letters from the SC, the first one on February 24, which is, and they are slightly different because the one that is submitted on the 24th of February, it's mainly testifying that the PO and the supervising entity have agreed to work together, have agreed on implementation modalities, they are acquainted of the will of submitting a proposal and so on. While the second, it's really about the readiness of the supervising entity to join the project, and also it serves as a confirmation that the supervising entity has done a quality check on the proposal before submitting it. Okay, so on May 9, when the final proposal are received, the coordination unit will again run a due diligence check for completeness. on the various documents, and this document will be sent to the Technical Advisory Committee, which is this external body, and it's an independent body that we build every time we have a call for proposal. And it's composed by experts of different sectors in agriculture and food nutrition security. And the mandate of this Technical Advisory Committee is to assess the proposals and submit a recommendation to the steering committee for allocation. To date, the steering committee has almost always agreed with the recommendation of the Technical Advisory Committee. And in general, the steering committee decide either to approve a proposal or not to approve, or when a proposal is particularly good, but there is not enough funding, to conditionally approve them pending new funding coming in. I'm almost finished. So this table outlines the selection criteria and weighting that will be used by the Technical Advisory Committee to rank projects. There are three main criteria that will be evaluated, and each of them has a specific weighting. The project description will count for 40% of the score. Here, the TAC will assess mainly the quality of the proposal, the feasibility, how the project address needs identified by the farmer, by the PO, and the outcomes that the project aim to achieve. Another 20% of the score will be related to the inclusion in the project of our thematic area. Again, the TAC look at the alignment of the activity with the three thematic area, but also will check for each project that there is an attention to and an inclusion of climate activities and also activities that bridge the gender gap. So yeah, finally, there is the operational readiness to implement, which counts for 30% of the score. This criteria is assessed by looking at the previous experience and capacity of the producer organization in managing funds, in project implementation, in working with partners, the structure of the budget, and also the arrangement that the producer organization and the supervising entity have. And in conclusion, the most interesting part, available funding. So to date, the GAFSP plans to allocate around 25 million, but this figure can increase depending on future donor commitments. So as of today, we plan to finance about 10 projects. So in this call, and if you look at the guidelines, you will see that we put a ceiling of 3 million per project, while we didn't put a minimum amount. But in general, it is not recommended to request grants under 1.5 million for new project, as the cost of implementation would become too high. We didn't put a lower limit because we expect to receive a request for additional funding for existing GAFSP PO-led project. And in that case, of course, grants lower than 1.5 million are accepted. So all this information, again, are available in our website, but you can also, as some of you already done so far, you can also write to our inbox. And after this session, we will also create a question and answer section of in our website. And finally, if you're a producer organization or if you are an NGO interested in providing services to a project, you can directly contact our supervising entity, either to ask them to be your partner in the project, or as I said, if you are an NGO or other service provider, you can reach out to offer your services. So with this, I'm done with the presentation, and thank you again for your attention. I would open the floor. I don't know if you, Darina, you already registered.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much, Ceci. Thank you, Adama and Ceci. And thank you, everyone. We have over 40 questions coming already. I have been reading through them, and I'm trying my best to group them in areas. So bear with us as we try to get through some of them. And as Ceci has noted, we're taking note of all the questions. There will be a FAQ, frequently asked questions section on the website that will go live later this week. We will also have recordings in all 3 languages available on the website, and all the presentations will be shared after the event in a few days. I've grouped a few questions for you to start with. There was quite a bit of activity, quite a bit of questions on the eligibility. A few of our colleagues from Nepal, India, Vietnam, other places had asked on the eligibility, and I know you spoke about this already to a certain degree, Ceci. So if you don't mind going over the eligibility criteria, and also in addition to that, establishing access to the SEs how any guidance on that, or at what stage that is established. And also a few questions came in on the whether or not it's needed that the SE has previous experience having worked with the PO. So I guess we can start with the eligibility relationship and between the SEs, establishing access to them. I will encourage those who have raised hand to please type the questions in the chat. We have about 40 questions coming in. We'll do our best to get through them, but we won't be taking questions in via a video intervention. So my apologies, we won't be inviting you to the floor, given that we're at almost 170 participants, but continue to put them in the chat and we will follow up. So over to you, Ceci, on the eligibility and relationship with the SEs, and I'll have a second set ready for you after.
Thanks a lot, Darina. So I know this is, we really try to make this definition as easy as possible and as open as possible, but I know it is more complicated than we would like to create a definition that do reflect the diversity that there is out there. So in general, I repeat once again the definition. Your organization must have the following characteristic. It must be a local organization or a national organization. This means that regional organizations are not eligible. This was a choice made also in agreement with the steering committee, and the objective is to really reach those actors that have been unable to access financing historically. So local organization or national organization, and this organization can have different structure. They can be cooperative, they can be union, they can be umbrella organization, they can be federation. We are very open about how you call them. We will just call them producer organization just for ease of reference, but of course we do realize that they might have different nuances. These organizations must include farmers or pastoralists or fisher folks, and there are other 2 aspects that are very important to us, and it's that the organization is owned by the PO, and by this we mean that the producer the members, the farmers, the fisher folk, the pastoralists are part of the decision-making body, and it can be through their participation in a board or in other ways. And also that the organization is not a profit-oriented organization. The organization might have profit and make profit, but this profit must be redistributed, either reinvested in the organization or redistributed across members. If you go to the template, the first template in part 1, you will see that we lay down 4 questions, and it's very easy to understand what we are looking for. So for example, you will see a question that it's clearly asking, is your organization formed by agriculture, farmers, fisher folks? And then you can respond yes or no. And it's an easy way to go through this question and understand if your organization is eligible. If in some cases, as I said, your organization does not really fit under the definition we provided, you can always provide a justification of why and why we should consider your case. So as I said, we do recognize that in some cases, NGOs are the only way, or private companies are the only way that organization of this kind can be registered. But please do specify that we are very open to accept this type of local NGOs. But of course, if your organization is an international organization, it will definitely not be eligible. So there are cases that it's clearly a no-go for us, but there are cases where there are shadows. And in these cases, we will really try to look at a case-by-case situation and ensure that this definition, it's not causing you, it's not being an obstacle when you really reflect the characteristic we're looking for. So I hope I responded to that. So regarding the SC previous experience with working with
PO, maybe one clarification on regional, because regional can have two definitions. In particular, in French-speaking countries, regional could be a subnational in a region within the country. They could be understood like that, but these are still national, okay? And as such could be eligible. When you talk about regional organization, is at the supranational level, which means an organization that is intervening across several number of countries. And this needs to be clarified. So whether you are a regional organization understood as an organization that is operating within a region, within a country, this is still a national POs, okay? You get me?
Many
because there is a
thanks,
question from Madagascar on that, from Madagascar.
Okay.
Peut-être en français pour le collègue de Madagascar qui a posé la question. Quand on parle d'organisation régionale, c'est au-delà du pays. Donc, c'est sous-régional en fait, comme une organisation qui est continentale ou qui travaille sur plusieurs pays dans une région, en Afrique australe ou ailleurs. Mais à l'intérieur d'un pays, il y a des régions. On ne parle pas d'organisation de région de Madagascar. Ces organisations de régions, à l'intérieur de Madagascar, sont toujours considérées comme des organisations nationales et donc éligibles à la proposition. D'accord? C'est juste la clarification que je voulais donner. Merci.
Many thanks, Dama. That's very important. Regarding supervising entity and if the supervising entity need to have had a previous experience with the producer organization, the answer is no. Of course, the supervising entity, the DPO can be new to the supervising entity as a partner. It's important and what will be looked at by the technical advisory committee is that the PO has previous experience working in partnership with other international partners, NGOs, and so on. Because what we want with that is to test the capacity of the PO to manage funds, to implement a project. So no problem if you've never worked with the supervising entity or with any of our supervising entity. If you've worked with the European Union, if you work within NGOs, that's okay. So you will see in the template that we ask for your experience in the past years regarding to this. I'm skimming quickly to the also somebody asked about supervising entity role. So again, the supervising entity as the role of supporting the producer organization. It's in our principle and in the principle of the PO-led track, the PO is the lead implementer of the project, and it's who designed the project. Of course, it really depends from the situation on the field, and we recognize that in some cases, the supervising entity may have a bigger role since the beginning. So if you have contacted a supervising entity already, or you will in the next days, the supervising entity may support you already in preparation of the call, and definitely each supervising entity will be requested once the proposal is finished. The SC will be requested to have a quality check control on the proposals. So in the last call for proposal, for example, we didn't have this requirement, but this time we are really asking the support of the SC early on in the process, because we recognize that having a quality check upfront, it also allows the technical advisory committee to select very high quality proposals. And also the supervising entity have an important role of applying its own internal rule and regulation during the implementation of the project. So when the project starts, the PO will follow the rules of the SC in transferring funds, in the implementation. And that's why it's very important that upfront the PO is aware of these rules that might change from SC to SC. I see a question about investment for infrastructure. This is not allowed in this call for proposal. In general, in GAFSP, we avoid providing funding to big investment infrastructure. Of course, if you're talking about smaller infrastructure like post-harvest facilities, this might be included, but it will be assessed by the technical advisory committee case by case. So I see.
Yeah, we have a few more.
Okay, sorry. Just on the producer, I read one about if a producer organization which has already participated in our last call proposal can submit new proposal for a call. This is a very important point. The answer is yes. So either if you are a PO who submitted a proposal that was not approved back in 2021, you can resubmit, and of course you can be part of the selection. If you are a PO who have received funding under the 2021 call for proposal, you cannot submit a new proposal, but you can submit a request for additional funding to top up the project you are currently preparing on implementing. So for the moment, we have 15 active PO-led projects. 12 of those are new active projects, and each of them can submit a proposal for additional funding in form of a new grant. So yeah, the answer is yes. Darina, do you have, I'm trying to go through the chat, but
yes. So I have a few ready for you, and I know you touched on this and you clarified, but maybe a little bit more on it. Engagement with the government and the nature of that. There were about 5 or 7 questions on this. So if you could just briefly touch on that. And then there were a few questions. There was a question that came in on the exceptional circumstances. Let me pull that up. Under which and conditions where NGOs or private companies can apply. So engagement with the government, what the nature of that is, exceptional circumstances, and there was a question on clarifying question about thematic areas for the call. And
okay, so regarding the engagement with the governments, this is also something that was not present in past call for proposal. What we included it because as GAFSP, we've always worked in line with the country priorities. So we thought that even if for this call you do not need an approval from the government, we are not requesting you to have an official agreements from the government to apply, but we would like you to inform the government that you are applying for this funding. So in the second part of the call for proposal, the supervising entity, as I said, are requested to submit an SC letter of readiness, and this letter of readiness, we expect you to confirm that you communicated to the country government or ministry. It can be the Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Economy and Finance, and that you communicated to them that you are applying for this funding. If you can attach the email communication or the official communication, that would be preferable. Regarding the exceptional circumstances for NGO and private sector to apply, as I said, as long as your organization is complying with the characteristic we laid out in the definition, so the organization is local, the organization is formed by farmers, the organization is the decision-making are made by the members, and it's not a non-profit organization, you can apply in principle, and we will try to see case by case, because we do recognize that sometimes NGO and private company are the only way our organization of producer can register in some countries. Regarding these thematic areas, I know this is a bit confusing because we have 3 thematic areas, but we also have 2 obligations. So we have 3 thematic areas which we expect your project to revolve around. So for example, your project can revolve around climate, can revolve around nutrition, or can revolve around women empowerment. This is up to you and to the context of your proposals. But in addition to this, each project needs to have at least some climate-related activities. This can be the inclusion of sustainable practices like agroecology and or other type of sustainable practices. You can find in our website and also linked in the call for proposal, the framework that we are using. And the important thing is that you have some activities that address that are aimed to climate adaptation and mitigation, but also you need to include an indicator, a climate indicator in your result framework. Also, in our website, you can find the M&E requirements, and there you can see which type of climate indicator we expect you to apply to your project. And also, of course, we want each of our projects to make some effort to close the gender gap. This doesn't mean that your entire project needs to revolve around women empowerment, but that your activity do make an effort to improve the situation and inclusion of women and the access of women to resources, jobs, and decision-making power, let's say. I hope I responded.
Thank you. Thank you, Ceci. And maybe you could speak briefly about the budget availability for this call, how much of it is expected to be allocated. And there was also a question. I know you covered it in the presentation, and everyone, again, we will have the PowerPoint that Ceci used earlier shared with you, as well as the recording, so you may go back and watch or share with colleagues. So on the budget available for this call, and also there was a question, if a country has an ongoing GAFSP funded program out of the PO-led window, while contributing to the cross-cutting themes of the current call, will that have a comparative advantage to apply for the current call? So I just wanted you to clarify on that, if it's
I wouldn't say it has a comparative advantage, it's just a requirement. So each of our projects are expected to include one of our cross-cutting themes. If they don't, as I said, the cross-cutting themes account for the 20% of the rank you will receive from the TAC. So if you have 0 on these 3 areas, you would receive 0 in that on that front. So it's definitely something that and would improve your ranking. Regarding the funding availability, again, as I said, for the moment we have 25 million to be allocated. This may change, but for the moment, but we will know this only in July. And each project can request a budget up to 3 million. This doesn't mean that your budget needs to be 3 million. It can be 1.7, 2.5. In general, the average is 2.5 that we received in the past. We didn't have a lower limit, but we do not advise you to request funding below the 1.5 million because it's really going to be a very high cost for such a small project. And the only reason why we didn't put a lower limit, it's because, as I said before, our 15 existing PO-led project can apply for additional funding. And in that case, we do expect to receive a request for lower than 1.5 million. There is a question that I've seen in the chat, which I think it's important, regarding the minimum capacity of the PO and how it will be affected. So by minimum capacity, as I said, we intend a minimum capacity to conduct implementation and management of a project. And it will be assessed looking at your previous experience in working in partnership and in implementing project. Of course, a PO that has 0 experience in implementing a project and 0 experience working in partnership will have a lower possibility to get to be eligible and to get funding. It's very important that it's clear that also the supervising entity are expected to conduct these this quality check and this capacity check before the submission of the final proposal. So the project need to be to a level of complexity that it's doable to be implemented by a producer organization. It doesn't need to be too ambitious, for example. And in general, having had previous experience implementing project, it's a big plus in this context. Okay, I hope I responded. I'm trying to see.
Thank you. Yes, and quite a bit of questions on the process and timeline of the call. All this on this, I would advise that there's also information, all that information available on the website. So to refer back to on the exact dates and how to download the templates, etc. I will drop the address of the GAFSP fund website in the chat. But if you wanted to briefly touch on, there was a question on, let's see exactly how it was worded. Will the SE send the document proposal directly to the CU after part 1 is checked? Will you notify both the PO and SE if they can proceed for part 2? So I guess if you could speak to the process of part 1, part 2, and the dates associated with that.
Yeah. So again, we expect you to send the expression of interest by the 24th of February. If you send it before, that's absolutely okay. We then will check for completeness of the proposals and the documents. So we will check that the bylaw is there, that all the part of the template are completed, and then we will get back to you. We will get back to you by 10 days. If there is some missing document, something that is openly wrong, we will reach out right away and we'll give you, if you submit a bit earlier, we will give you a few days to resubmit the needed document, the missing document. We do not accept delayed application. In general, we made very clear on the document that the only case when we would accept a delayed application is the case where when supervising entity do notify us within 2 days from the deadline that the application will come late, and the delay can be maximum of 3 days. Once we have all this document and we have the information we need to give an initial assessment of the PO eligibility, this year we'll do so. We'll see if your PO in your organization in principle align with our definition, and within 10 working days you will have a response. I think it's going to be by the 10th of March. And we will notify the supervising entity. As I said, the supervising entity is the entity that submits the document on behalf of the PO, and it's our interface, the SIM interface. So we generally communicate with the supervising entity for any type of communication, both in preparation and during the implementation of the project. I saw an important question on the chat, Darina, regarding the possibility to apply as a PO consortium.
Please go ahead. Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, the answer is yes. You can, of course, a consortium can apply. What cannot be done is to create a consortium to apply for this call. And in principle, this is because this type of consortium will not have track records to apply for the call for proposal, will not have experience. So even if you do that and if you establish it and there is a legal document, the technical advisory committee will not, or at least you will not have many chances to go ahead because there is no prove that you had experience in implementing a project, which is something that is very important for this call for proposal.
Thanks, Ceci. I see maybe 2 or 3 questions on project duration. Let me refer to this. One of them specifically saying, what is the recommended duration of the project? If you wanted to address that as I look through the chat.
So the recommended duration is 4-year max, or less. So we would not accept a proposal that go further than 5 years, because this is the duration that we usually apply to big investment projects. And also related to duration and implementation. So the project, we expect that the project starts quite quickly, and we put a lot of criteria also because we want to promote and to nudge project to implement it quickly. And that's why we are looking for experienced PO, and that's why we are financing the scale up of existing project. But per our supervising entity guidelines, we do allow 2 years from the project approval for implementation. So within the 2 years from the approval, you must have begin your implementation. But of course, we hope for a shorter timeline.
Thank you, Ceci. So to everyone who is in the chat or hasn't checked yet, I've put the GAFSPfund.org website there. And there's still quite a bit of questions on the eligibility. So I'll just ask those colleagues to please check the website on the eligibility criteria. In reference to India and Vietnam, they're not eligible. And so for the IDA only countries that are eligible for the call, please do check that list on the website. So I just refer you to that on the eligibility. And I see a few questions, about 10 of them coming directly to me. So please, if you have a question, type into everybody. So my colleagues who are also monitoring the chat see it. If it's just directly to me, I may miss it. And also maybe others can benefit from reading that question in the chat. So just be sure to send the question to all. And let's see, there are more coming in on
something, I'm sorry, Adriana, just to complement on eligibility.
Yes.
If you have strong doubts about the eligibility of a PO, please do share it with us in advance. You can reach out on our inbox and ask if in principle a PO it's eligible. So again, I want to stress that in the coordination unit, we will run a check on your eligibility based on information you provide. But again, when the technical advisory committee will go through all the documents and will do it with a strong capacity, they might find that your PO is not eligible, even if the CU deemed it eligible. So in principle, this should not be the rule, but it might happen. But just to stress it that in any case, you can reach out to us and we will do our best to give you an answer as soon as possible regarding eligibility. And on this point, I know that it came in a question asking if a supervising entity can submit more than one proposal per country to raise its possibility to have an eligible PO. And the answer is no. As it's clearly said in the guidelines, the SC can submit only one, can be partnered with only one PO per country. And if you have doubts on the PO and if the organization is can fall under the definition of the PO, reach out to us in advance. And if you have more than one request from the same country, of course, we invite you to go with the PO that has the more likely and the best chance to go through.
Thanks, Ceci. Everyone, I've put in the email address, general GAFSP email account address in the chat. So please.
No, se l'hai la flash.
I think someone's trying to come in. Please mute your mic if you're not on the floor yet. And if someone has a question, could you please type into the chat? So I was saying that I have included the general GAFSP program email account in the chat, and we'll share that as a follow-up. And I know quite a number of you have already been submitting questions and communicating with the CEU. So that inbox is monitored daily. So you can establish contact with us through that. If you haven't been corresponding with us yet. So the email is there. And if you have your hand raised, please reminder to type it in the chat. But let's see other questions that have come in.
And I see here how many pages should the template be.
Yes.
You find this indication in the first page of each template.
And all of these templates can be downloaded there on the GAFSP website. And I'll actually put in a link directly to the call. And you will be able to retrieve the templates from there. And all the deadlines and procedures will be listed there. Also, we're taking a note of 80+ questions now that have come in. Later this week, we will prepare a frequently asked question directory of those questions, and then we will include them on the website. So some of the questions that we're not able to address or haven't gone through yet, we will, as a team, address them and then list them on the website. And also for transparency, that those that may not have been able to join now are able to refer back to them. All the recordings, English, French, Spanish, will also be saved and put on the website. So don't fear, it will be available. So back to,
I see here an important question in the chat.
Yes,
so about the NGO. So can an experienced NGO apply on behalf of PPO? The answer is no. NGO, in particular, big NGO, international NGO, so NGO that are not local and not responding to the definition of PO that we outlined, cannot apply. They can participate in the project in two ways. So either they co-finance the project, and so they participate as a partner of the project, or they participate as a service provider. And in this case, of course, it's important that the unit cost is highlighted, and the type of service and which type of activity they are supporting. But the NGO would not be considered as a co-implementer or as a co-supervising entity.
thank you, Chichi. On that, there was a question that just came in. Can a previous proposal be presented again? I think you covered that earlier, that they are
Yeah,
able.
of course they can. Of course, as I said, with this COFA proposal, we specifically want to scale up activities that are existing. So if your old proposal that was not selected, do a link to existing activity and scale up existing activity, or recently closed activity, and you can prove that, yes, the answer is absolutely yes.
And a few colleagues asked about the budget or the previous experience of the PO, if it's necessary to demonstrate that they have managed an X amount of funds. So one of those few questions put it specifically like this: if the budget floor is 1.5 million for 4 years, let's say, then does the PO need to show that they've previously managed at least, let's say, 375K per year in previous fiscal years? And a few other colleagues asked also, is there some sort of a amount that they must prove they have managed in the previous years to be eligible? So back to the eligibility question.
Okay, so I want to show you, maybe I will share my screen and I show you how the template looks like, because I think it clarifies a lot of questions. So give me a second. So this is the template for expression of interest. As you see here, it's written on the template should not exceed the 7 pages. Here is the information about when it should be ended in. And so here we ask for a report or a link to the activities, latest activities of the PO, and if the PO is a registered legal entity, and if it is registered as an NGO or private company, please provide information about why this is the case. So here you would see what we intend to look for. We do realize that the producer organization do not always have the capacity and do not always have all this information handy, as this one that you just mentioned about the budget managing. We are not looking for this detailed information, but if you have it, much better. Of course, the more information, the more proof that the PO has capacity, the capacity to implement a project, a capacity to manage funds, the more information available, the better. In particular, if you want your proposal to be ranked high. But in any case, so for example, here we are asking, is the PO a national or subnational PO? Is it an apex organization? Describe the country context in the condition where the PO operates. And the primary activity. So this is the first question. The second question is about membership. So we are asking, does your organization include farmers, pastoralists, fisher folk, and so on? Please provide information on the nature of membership structures. So for this kind of question, we do appreciate if you share a supporting document, but of course we do realize that this is not always the case. You might not have such a document. The bylaws is really the only document we want from you, because we want to check the organization is registered and when it was registered. But in general, if you can describe the nature of the organization, how it's structured, we accept that. And again, so here, for example, you see, do PO member participate in the governance of the producer organization? Describe how. So again, if you have a document that do prove that, if you have a bylaw that do describe very clearly how the PO are involved in the decision-making process, fantastic, do attach that. I mean, this is all, the most information you share, the better. But if you don't have such a document, describe it. So when the CU will check on your eligibility, will check basically that all these questions are positive, are responded positively. And then we remit the decision to the technical advisory committee. But of course, if the question, does the PO share profits or benefits or reinvest profits in the PO, you respond no. Of course, this means that your organization is not in line with, or for example, if the PO or if the members do not participate in the governance of the organization, your organization will not be eligible. So I think if you go through the template and you look at the question, things are getting clearer. So please do that. And again, please share information, share question if you still have a pending question.
Since you already had this screen up, you've switched it back. I was hoping maybe you can actually put up the website and we can show them how to get to the, I mean, it's very, it shows very clearly on the website about how to get to the PO specific call and the template. So as you pull that up, I also wanted to say for the last few questions that came in on the government involvement, accessing SEs and the relationship with that was covered earlier. So for the sake of time that we only have 15 more minutes left, please refer back to the recording for more extensive answers that Chechi provided earlier. So we're back to GAFSPfund.org. And we're just,
this is, of course, among my favorites, and it's easy to find it. But if you type GAFSP.org and you go here on the top right corner and you go to learn more, you see a page dedicated to the PO call for proposal. Here is a brief description, and here you have all the documents. So this is the guidelines. You can download it in French or in English, and here you have all the instruction of what to do, which kind of activities to include, how to do the process, and so on. You should have all the information there, and information which are not responded, which you don't find here, please do write us, because if you have such a question, other people will have, and we will post it on the website. Then you can download the expression of interest template, again, either in English or in French. And finally, part 2, the final, here we call it full, but it's a final proposal template, again, either in English or in French. So it's very, very easy. I think that if you try to download these documents, things are getting clearer. Here you see our supervising entities. And again, I will share the PowerPoint that I presented, and you have the names of our focal points that you can reach out directly to ask for if they are available to partner. So of course, it's very competitive also on their side. They are receiving a lot of requests, and they will also have to select those that are more likely to receive funds and the project that are more likely to have success and sustainability. So it's not an easy process. I see you are a lot today here and the interest is very high, but unfortunately the funding amount is limited, and also our human forces to support you.
Thank you, Ceci. Yeah, referring to the question on the SE and the list of that, yes, please go back to the website on the list of supervising entities, and in the PowerPoint, there will be the focal point contact information for each SE. And as you were speaking to on the, on the funds and availability, yes, there was a question on that came in as saying, just to go off of your comment, as supervising entity, we have received 3 POs requesting us to supervise them, but we're not sure if we can handle more than 1 PO. But yes, rightly so on that, Ceci. We have about 10 minutes left, and I see we have still over 141 colleagues. Is there any question or any area topic that you still would like to cover, Ceci, from your perspective?
I'm trying to go through the questions. I see a lot on eligibility. Again, please, I think the easiest way to understand if your organization is eligible is by downloading the template for part 1 and trying to respond to the first bunch of questions. And that will give you a sense of if your organization is eligible or not. And also, we do need a legal document that talk about the registration of your organization. And again, the more information, the better. I see a lot of, so I see, for example, here you can organization owned by the state supply. In this case, no. Of course, this is not open to organizations that are para-state organization.
And there was a question, if you don't mind, that came in French, I believe.
I'm sorry, there is also regarding our supervising entity. So I know it's also very tough work for you in your hands. You must be receiving tons of producer organization requests, and we do not have guidelines on how you should select your producer organization, but the majority of supervising entity do have experience so far. And in particular, our RBAs have a lot of experience working with producer organizations. So we really remit it to your judgment. So the key point, I think, is eligibility. So that the PO must comply with the definition. And if you are not sure, please reach out to me and to colleagues, and we will try to respond. Something also very important is checking if these PO have experience and have experience working with partners and in implementing projects. So I think the quality check can vary from organization to organization, but the main things that we would like you to verify is that the PO or the organization applying has capacity, as it does fall under the definition, and the project that it's proposing do scale up existing activities, and it's also has potential to benefit its members.
There was a question that had come in French, and I'm just trying to see if it has been addressed, but I don't believe in fully. When applying for funding to scale up the activities of a PO that received funding in the last call, can it do so with the same supervising entity, or can it take on a new entity for the extension phase? So on that, if you want to comment.
So in principle, we expected it to be with the same supervising entity you're working with, because the reason why we are allowing our existing project to request additional funding, but we are not allowing a project that are not GAFSP, it's because the cost of management this project is very high otherwise. So if a project is already existing and would scale up for us, it would not imply a big management cost, even if the grant is small. But if you apply with a new organization, it is for us as if you are applying for a new project. So if you have an existing project, do apply with the same organization. And in that case, your same organization will have the advantage of being able to submit more than one PO proposal in the same country. So for example, if one of our active projects, let's say in Bangladesh, it's applying for additional funding, the supervising entity can also submit a new proposal with another PO for Bangladesh. I hope this is clear.
And one of our colleagues is asking about a clarifying question about the GAFSP project target groups or beneficiaries and cross-cutting theme issues. You spoke earlier on the cross-cutting themes, but if you wanted to touch on that.
Again, yes. So let me see if I can pull up the template so you can see what we are talking about. Okay, so this is the template for part 2, and in particular, this is the section for thematic areas. So here we ask you how the project proposed will empower women and girls, and in particular will bridge gender gaps. So in general, we do not expect each proposal to revolve around women empowerment, but we do expect some activities to address the issue. So for example, the inclusion of women in training, and in particular activities that ensure not only the inclusion of women in accessing information, but also the usage of women to this information. Here we explain how the project contributes to climate adaptation and mitigation. So again, does it need to be that the entire project is a climate project, but here you have to at least show which indicators you are including on climate and which activities are related to climate. And finally, here is about nutrition. So nutrition is not, differently from the first two, nutrition is not compulsory. Let's say you don't need necessarily to have a strong component or activity of focus on nutrition. Of course, given that we're talking about agriculture and food security, it's very likely so. But at the same time, it's the only one where you can, let's say, leave blank. But in case your project is a nutrition project, you explain how your project will support the improvement of food security of the PO members and the community members. So in general, just to be clear, the first two sections here, you must include some information, either because gender or climate is the key focus of your project, or because you anyway need to include some attention to these two topics. The third one doesn't need to be necessarily part of your project, but if your project is has a focus on nutrition, you need to fill this part. And of course, a project can tackle more than one thematic area. It doesn't need to be one, of course. And the best and the better the thematic areas are embedded in your project, the more possibility you have to get the max ranking on this in this section.
Could you explain more about the management of the project by the supervising entity? One of the colleagues asks. I thought that it's the PO that ensures the financial management in view of the procedural constraints observed in some supervising entities.
So No, in any case, the GAFSP do rely on its supervising entity and on the process and procedures of the supervising entity. So when a PO is working, or an organization, I call it PO just as a reference to our definition, but when a producer organization works with a supervising entity, the supervising entity rules and regulation applies. Of course, as long as these rules and regulation are in line with the GAFSP principles, but in general, we have a long-standing relationship with these 7-8 supervising entities. So we have no doubt about that. So what's very important is transparency. Of course, different PO, different supervising entity have different rules on managing funds, on channeling funds to producer organization. In any case, funds go to the producer organization, and the producer organization uses funds for its activities and directly benefit from the funds. But at the same time, how this is done in practice really depends from the regulation and of the supervising entity. So when you get in touch with a supervising entity, make sure that this is clear to you. The result is the same, but it's just different how the procedure is, in particular on channeling funding. The answer, no, it's anyway we remit to the SC rules and regulation, because the principle is that we trust these organizations and we delegate this part of the work to them.
Thank you, Ceci, for a very extensive Q&A session. I am just aware of the timing. There's about a minute or so left. So we have almost 100 questions that came in. No doubt that there are a few that were not answered directly. We did our best to group them, but no worries. You always have an opportunity to reach out to us via the email to the CU. Check the website for the call-related documents in multiple languages. Check back later this week for the recording in all 3 languages. We will also share the PowerPoint presentation, and hopefully the frequently asked questions will be collated and posted on the website as well. But at this point, we're not able to take in any more of your questions. I still have some in the queue, but we have just a few seconds left, so I want to be respectful of your time. But wow, what an active session today, and just to say that about 180 of you at some point were joining in from all around the world. So we're grateful that you took an hour and a half to be a very active participant in this info session. We can see the energy and interest and excitement in the call. Delighted to be interacting with you, working with you. The CU, we're always available to answer your questions and work with you. So all the resources that you've been asking for in the chat, they will be made available. But I thank you again for joining us. Thank you very much. If you have any closing thoughts, Ceci, otherwise we will close up at the...
No, thank you very much, everybody. I know there is a lot of pending question, but please do reach out. I will try to, and with our colleagues, we will try to respond to each of them. And we are very excited. The interest is very high. And of course, I think this is a fantastic initiative of GAFSP. We're very proud of it. And we look forward to receive your proposal and to really support smallholders firsthand. And I don't know, maybe I see Adama is still connected. Maybe he wants to come in. And in the meantime, I want to thank again a lot our interpreters. As always, it's very important, and it's a part of our principle also to be able to share this information to everybody in their preferred language. So I don't know if Adama wants to come in. Otherwise, I think we can close the session.
Thank you. I think he had to step away. as we're already past the time. But thank you, Ceci. Thank you, our interpreters and our colleagues for setting this up and making it run as smooth as possible with so many participants.
Thanks. And thanks, Darina. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.